We have 4 movies this week.
Yep. Indeed we do.
Okay. We're going to start with, obviously, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I was worried because of the magnificent reviews.
Yeah.
I was really trying hard to avoid them because I was really afraid it was going to be overrated. Same thing I'm doing with the Grand Budapest Hotel. So the interesting approach that they took with this was, we've been getting really, really extravagant, like with the Iron Man movies, and then we had the Avengers, and then we had the most recent Thor that came out in November.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting more and more special effects extravagant as they go, and getting weirder shit like aliens and gods, and then in Thor we were dealing with elves.
Yeah.
The approach they were going to take with the Winter Soldier was to basically make it an espionage thriller in the vein of 3 Days of the Condor.
Yeah.
And it surprisingly works that way.
Very much so.
And it also helps to kind of have that balance, because you can only do so much with a character like Captain America.
True.
Which we'll actually get into more of how that's also built on. The plot, like most espionage movies, the plot itself, minus the developments, is more or less really simple.
Yeah.
Basically, Nick Fury realizes that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been hacked into, and eventually gets to the point that it's completely compromised.
Yes.
Which, as Martin Sheen taught us in The Departed, means S.H.I.E.L.D.'s completely fucked.
Indeed.
So, of course, Captain America has to investigate that, and he may or may not come across one or two or a shitload of things from his past.
Yes.
By that I mean the past movie. So, it was 3 years ago already.
God, it seems so long ago.
In the summer of 2011.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of different plot developments go in various directions from there. Do you want to go ahead and tell them about the video we're doing? Because it's what's happening here is it's going to be really hard to talk about this without being spoilery.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't even know what's a spoiler and what isn't, depending on...
We've been saying that a lot lately.
Especially since I haven't watched trailers or TV spots. I have no idea what people have already seen, because I was seeing all this for the first time.
I can vouch for you, even with the Regal branded content, you actually saw a lot of spoilers in the trailer, for sure. I will say right now that I said a while ago, I think it was a couple months ago, that we were getting some brand new segments coming to the channel soon. And this is actually going to be one of them. Now, this won't be for every single movie. Don't worry, we're not doing that. But for the major movies, like the big blockbusters, or just for stuff we want to talk about and spoil for everyone else, we're going to create a new segment called Spoiler Alert. And what Spoiler Alert's going to be is we're just going to completely spoil the entire movie. So, if you are somebody who likes to be spoiled, you're going to love this.
Well, also mainly for, like, if it's movies like this that are really big,
yes.
It'll be, like, the reason I agreed to do something like that was the very first video I did was Iron Man 3.
Yes.
And I was very, going around the Mandarin twist.
Yep.
And I felt kind of stupid because after I went through getting around that as much as I could, pretty much everybody in the entire world was talking about the Mandarin twist on the internet, like, that night. So, just to kind of put everything out there.
So, it will not be the same day, and unfortunately, if we had the website, we would be able to do something with, like, the video on top of the video like other people do. But this is going to be the next day. So, tomorrow's video will be the spoiler alert, the first one, and it will be Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
And plus, it's just easier to do that way with a separate video, because I could say, alright, here's the spoilers, go away.
Yeah.
Because...
which we have done in the past.
Since we put so many different movies on one video, they may want, like in this particular video, they may not want Captain America spoiled, but want to see, like, what we said about bad words.
Yeah.
they wouldn't have to skip like a whole chunk of me basically talking about the entire last half hour of Captain America.
Yeah, you'll get that video tomorrow, and actually, if you want a template of pretty much what we're going to be doing, you can go back and check out the review of the Iceman from last year. And that's probably the first unofficial spoiler alert.
Which brings us back to Chris Evans.
Exactly.
And since we're going to segue into that, I'd like to talk about Chris Evans for a second.
Sounds good.
He was talking about possibly retiring from acting to go to be a director instead.
Yes.
It's not like set in stone, but it's something he's considering when his Marvel contract's up.
Correct.
But he is a really talented actor. He's really starting to show, especially with how he could play Captain America twice, then play fucking Mr. Freezy in the Iceman, and then come seamlessly right back into charming Captain America.
Yeah.
I remember when he was first cast, it was like right after Scott Pilgrim came out.
Yeah.
And I was one of the people that was just like, why? But I really have trouble picturing anybody else.
Absolutely.
Wasn't McConaughey gonna do it at one point?
I think so, and now the way that his career has gone, I can't imagine that now. At all.
Well, Chris Evans is just as charming as he's always been in this.
Yeah.
Which pretty much makes the whole character, thus making pretty much the whole movie. So thank you, Chris Evans, for that.
Yes.
I will say this movie is almost constant action.
Yeah.
But the great thing about that is the fact that, I talked about this with Sabotage last week. The great thing about it is it's rare to have an action movie that's so well put together that the action scenes all actually have a point, especially when the whole movie is pretty much that.
Yeah.
But you actually have a scene that pretty much leads into the next action scene that makes what is happening reasonable.
It doesn't feel forced either. It feels very seamless.
And they're nice and this isn't a criticism at all. This is a good thing. They're nice and long too.
Oh yeah.
Like there's a car chase with Nick Fury towards the beginning. It felt long, but in the best possible way. It felt like in an epic way.
Oh yeah, the movie in itself is epic.
So, and that really helps the pacing too. It's 2 hours and 16 minutes. I think.
Flew right by.
And it's basically got every form of action you could ask for, like gunfights and car chases and foot chases and hand-to-hand fights. Pretty much all in one movie in all different contexts. What I was talking about now with when you look at the Avengers lineup, I've heard this criticism a lot. A lot of people think that Captain America doesn't do a whole lot. He either blocks with his shield or he throws his shield.
And he does do both of these in the movie, but so much more than that.
But there's a really good scene at the very beginning. It's one of the very first scenes where they put this to rest. And of course, we're wondering just how super Captain America actually is. Mm-hmm. So the guy that he's after says, why don't you... He actually makes him fight him without his shield. And Captain America actually puts the shield on his back and fights him hand to hand and still beats his ass.
He took his mask off, too, to show that he was serious.
Yeah. And there's... Of all places, there's a really great action scene in a fucking elevator.
Yes!
And I love how they built that up, too, with the, it's him in the elevator by himself, and then one guy walks in, and then a couple more guys walk in, and then soon he's in there with a whole group of people, and he just says, you know, if anybody doesn't want a part of this, now's the time to get out.
The setup of that's in the trailer, but the payoff is so much worth it.
We can talk about Anthony Mackie for a second.
Yes.
Anthony Mackie, it's no secret apparently, plays the Falcon, I think is his name.
Yes.
First off, I have no problems with Anthony Mackie ever.
No.
He's a really, really great actor that I mean, not to, take full credit or anything, but for the longest time, like, since We Are Marshall, I was saying, that guy's gonna be huge.
Mm-hmm.
And here he is now.
Yeah.
He's been in 2 Best Picture winners, and he's now in this gigantic franchise.
Which made $10 million on Midnight Shows alone last night.
And he has consistently great performances, and no matter what he's in. He's basically the comedy relief sidekick.
Yeah.
To put it simply. The problem with it is I felt his character was really abrupt. Like, in the very first scene of the movie, we meet him.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, a half hour down the road, we see him one more time. And then suddenly he's the one Captain America goes to for help, and in the very next scene, he's the fucking Falcon.
Yeah.
That seemed a little fast.
Just a bit.
They could have maybe... I mean, I know the movie was already long, but they could have, sprinkled him in other places before to kind of somewhat build... I mean, they did kind of build up by... He kind of gave us little pieces of his backstory at a time, the 2 times we saw him.
Yeah.
I'm sure Anthony Mackie would have made a few more scenes work. I'm sure he's great at improv. Just don't even give him a script. Just say, hey, we need a few more scenes to kind of, shape Sam Wilson out before he becomes the Falcon. Why don't you just do some shit?
And it would work.
But, whatever. Scarlett Johansson fans will be pleased.
Very much so.
I'm not really much on her bandwagon. I mean, I like her, and I like, the way she looks. But, I've just never understood how she's gotten, the insanely massive, horny following that she has.
That's the best way I've ever heard it described, too, to be honest.
But she's fine here. She's fine in the whole series. She's been in it since Iron Man 2, I think. Speaking of Iron Man 2, we have a returning character again. I don't think this one's a spoiler, because nobody probably even remembers. The senator played by Gary Shandling we saw at the beginning of Iron Man 2. Shanley comes back and reprises the role in this.
Which makes me very happy, because I was a big fan of it's Gary Shandling show and the Larry Sanders show, and I'm a big fan of his work.
Of course, Samuel L. Jackson is Nick Fury, as always.
Yep.
And he is Samuel L. Jackson at his most Samuel L. Jackson-like.
Without cursing. That's the only thing Nick Fury doesn't do, he doesn't curse.
There was one scene where I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
I won't say what scene that was, but I was waiting for it.
We'll talk about that tomorrow.
And of course, the big addition to the cast list is Robert Redford.
Yeah.
As a shady businessman.
We'll go with that.
And I love that he's making a comeback acting-wise. Because for a while he just kind of went back into directing, but now he's had The Company You Keep, All Is Lost, and this all within a year.
And they're all good performances, too.
Yeah. So, now let's talk about the title character for a second. Basically, what happens with the rest of the plot of the movie is, amongst all this espionage and paranoia and Bakula-esque plots, we're introduced to basically a metal-armed super assassin called the Winter Soldier.
Correct.
Who's basically unstoppable. He can even beat the shit out of Captain America. I don't know, obviously I'll say more later, but, I know there's, all the comic book followers, obviously, but I mean as far as, a normal audience. I have no idea if the Winter Soldier's identity is supposed to be known ahead of time or not.
He's shrouded in darkness pretty much from the beginning. He's wearing his mask, and then later on, he's shrouded in darkness.
He wears a mask over his jaw and eyes. Yeah. But then, in his second scene, he's not wearing the thing over his eyes, and you can tell who it is. So I couldn't tell if you were supposed to know then or not. I have no idea.
There is a very reputable website that spoils it anyway, so... I mean, I knew going in, and I was thinking that was the direction they were going to go, and that's not knowing anything about the Captain America comics at all.
And yeah, speaking of the comic book fans, there is inside shit littered everywhere.
Yes.
There are references left and right. There's a reference to there's plenty of references to Stark. There's a reference to Banner. We see Stark Tower in like a really quick flash on a monitor. I kept looking for those other little things. There's a scene at the beginning that bothered me because I completely overlooked it. In one of the very first scenes of the movie, actually it's the very first scene of the movie, after he and Anthony Mackie have gone on their run, Mackie's telling him that if he wants to catch up on the times, he needs to listen to one Marvin Gaye album.
Yes.
And he pulls out this list and he writes down the name of the album and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The camera stayed on the list for a long time. I'm imagining there was something on his list, or all the things on his list were like inside references to something. But I didn't see it because I was too busy seeing if he was actually writing what Mackie actually told him to write down. And I didn't see what the rest of the list was.
He wrote Trouble Man, parentheses, soundtrack.
I have a feeling the rest of the list might have been an Easter egg, but I didn't see it. I don't know, it might just be nothing. But the camera stayed on it for a long time.
It lingers for a while, but not long enough to be able to get a mental picture of exactly everything that was on it.
I think we were supposed to be reading what was on the list, but I was too busy paying attention when he was writing and I didn't see what it was.
Well, you have to watch it again then. There you go.
I'm sure somebody will... It's probably on IMDb's trivia page right now. So yeah, it does kind of... I think the writers, I could be mistaken, are the writers the guys that wrote Pain and Gain?
I think so.
That explains the awesome script.
Yeah, it does.
The only problem is I kind of thought it started to kind of... It doesn't, like, completely dive, or it doesn't go downhill or anything, but it's less, I don't know, crackling in, like, the last 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it starts to get kind of predictable. And, you know, doesn't have the same effect that the last hour and whatever did. Hour and a half or so. Especially because I'm not a Kobe Smulders fan.
No, you're not.
So, I guess that's kind of an issue. But that could just be me. I mean, she is the star of an extremely hit show that just ended. So, you know, that could just be me. But regardless of that, it is very, very good. It is, most people were putting it over as the greatest Marvel movie they've made so far. I don't think that's the case, but...
I wouldn't go that far.
It's not close to the bottom.
No.
It's been a while since I watched the other ones, so... I think the last time I watched the rest of them was when the Avengers was coming out. Oh no, I watched the first Iron Man not that long ago. But, yeah, I would say it is probably towards the top when you compare them all. Which is a huge step up from the last Thor, which, while not bad, is low on the list. But yeah, I was pleased. I don't think it's overrated, probably. I mean, if some people think it's the best Marvel movie they've made so far, I can buy that.
I can see it.
But I just think it's very good. Which, I say a little condescendingly, which it shouldn't sound that way at all, because very good is a very good compliment. So, yeah, I think it's just the, it has the disadvantage of having all the magnificent reviews already attached to it. That would make very good not sound that great, but yes, I think very positively of it.
Absolutely. Certainly the best thing we've seen in a while in a big blockbuster type movie. We haven't seen a big blockbuster in a while. It's been very good.
We also had to see it in 3D.
Yeah.
I wanted to get out early, I'm sorry, and that was the closest we could get.
Yeah, we got extra showings this time around because they wanted more showings for it.
But the 3D looked perfectly fine.
I thought it was alright.
Normally, 3D is just a pain in the ass. But
yes.
It worked pretty well here. It looked nice and clear.
Yeah, very much so.
And once again, I love complaining about special effects because for some reason people get real lazy with the CG sometimes.
Yeah.
All the effects look great.
Oh yeah.
Like nothing really stood out to me as looking obviously animated or fake. Which is really impressive because there's a shitload of effects in this movie.
Yeah, there are.
Especially at the end. Good God. So yeah. In pretty much all aspects of it, the movie's extremely impressive. So, there were just some moments there towards the end where I kind of thought it was. There were a few things where I said, I guess they're gonna do that, or they're.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, obviously that was gonna happen from a mile away. But, fuck it.
The battles are good.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I really love the hand-to-hand fighting. They did that a lot. Which is really, really awesome to see in a superhero movie. Because, like we say, they really overuse the CG and the special effects.
Mm.
This is one of those movies which I guess kind of is, symbolic of the character that he is, because he comes from, 1945.
Yeah.
So, good on you for all of that. So let's go on to our next movie. And we'll talk about the rest of Captain America later.
Yes, well, that'll come up tomorrow.
The next movie is Bad Words, which slowly but surely has been getting... it started off in a limited theatrical release, then it expanded a little bit, then it expanded a little more, and now it's at a rather more or less wide expansion.
Yeah, as wide as it is without being officially wide.
This movie was at TIFF, and as soon as I read the description, I wanted to see this thing.
Yes, completely agreed.
It's Jason Bateman's, I think, directorial debut. For
So.
movies, anyway. And Jason Bateman basically plays a guy that's, of course, Jason Bateman's age.
Yeah.
Who cons his way, by way of a loophole, a very elaborate loophole, into an 8th grade spelling bee. And it's basically Jason Bateman's Bad Santa.
That's exactly what it reminded me of.
Because he is extremely foul-mouthed. He hates being around kids. He basically loves to make them miserable.
Yeah.
But he eventually finds his way and becomes sensitive when he befriends a kid.
Yeah.
While having relations with a girl that he may or may not have a thing for. We're not sure.
Yeah.
Definitely Jason Bateman's Bad Santa.
Without question.
It fits all the criteria.
It really does.
This might be my favorite movie of the year right now.
Yeah.
So, basically, the interesting thing about this movie is it could basically be an excuse to just be that. To just be the shock value of, oh my god, he said that in front of kids.
Oh, you mean the Melissa McCarthy movies?
Basically doing what Billy Bob Thornton did through the 2000s.
Yes.
With Bad News Bears and all them. So anything with bad in its title. Well, the interesting thing about this movie is it's sort of, while being hilarious,
Yeah.
it's actually really good at telling this mysterious story. Because the woman he has relations with is Catherine Hahn, who's a journalist who's basically trying to figure out why he's doing this. Most movies would just dismiss it as he's a piece of shit, or in Bad Santa it was he was a drunk, abused piece of shit, and that's just what he is.
Yeah.
This guy is actually, he has a purpose for what he's doing.
Very much so.
And the whole movie is kind of a mystery to figure that out. And it's they already took what was a great concept, putting a foul-mouthed Jason Bateman in the middle of an 8th grade spelling bee.
Yes.
And they actually put a really good, interesting story with it. That actually and it never feels false.
No.
Like, you'd think, when he befriends the kid, it would get into, sentimental, whatever, we've seen this before territory. But it never does. There's actually a point in the movie where, normally, in movies like this, where the adult befriends the kid, there'll be a point where the adult does something, and the kid is hurt by it. and he just kind of walks away with his head down and sad. In this movie, it happens the other way around, and the kid does something that makes the adult sad.
Yeah.
And pretty much every time it looks like this movie's going to reach a cliche, it turns around and does something different, and makes it something better and funnier than the direction it could have gone. Which is really what makes this movie work, and it does that consistently. It's a short hour and a half, but they make the most of it.
Completely.
Even when it gets to the end, without saying anything, when it gets to the end, there's kind of a conclusion that you know is probably going to happen. And they're basically driving you right in that direction. And then just when it looks like it's going to have the big, predictable finale, and you're just kind of there to watch it happen, they just do something totally different.
Yeah.
And it just makes the scene a lot funnier. And it's great. That's really what comedy should do, because comedies have this really bad habit lately of being a little too much into their drama, forgetting that they're comedies.
Yeah.
And they try too hard to be sentimental and, like, meaningful. And they don't stay comedies. Bad Words is a comedy from beginning to end. And it basically solves all of its problems by way of comedy. And that's exactly how it should be. That's how they fucking all should be.
Yeah.
If they're straight comedies with no other genre in there. And this is a straight comedy. And Bateman's proving to be a really promising director too. But I mean, he's not like overly flashy. He's not like, hey, I'm the actor in the movie and this is me directing. Can you tell that it's me directing?
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way the movie's put together and the way it flows and just everything is. He handled it very well. So, I guess we can talk about some things. First off, Bateman's performance. Now that we talked about him as a director, his as an actor is incredibly good.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to bring up two scenes to talk about because of this. To think about it this way. Obviously, when Bateman starts the movie, he's this horrible, horrible person. I love the beginning credits sequence, where after he's conned his way into the spelling bee and all the parents are raising Cain, we never actually see the event. We see the end of it when he wins. And he takes the microphone, and he says, I watched this a week ago, I'm trying to remember the line. It's something on the lines of, your little pricks are going to be counting tears tonight instead of sheep. And then the beginning credit sequence is this slow motion sequence of him running out of the building with the trophy with the mob of parents chasing him.
And throwing things at him.
And so he continues to just be this asshole.
Yes, and he's good at it too.
There's this great scene on the plane where he meets the kid that he becomes friends with. And it's this little Indian kid. Which they keep making jokes about because he keeps calling him Slumdog.
Yeah.
I think he just called him Slumdog once, but that's obviously. He
calls him Shawarma once too.
Yeah. So basically, does the whole "don't talk to me" thing, and the kid's like, what was the word you spelled to win? Everybody remembers that word, and he tells the kid that the word was autofellatio. And the kid is able to use his knowledge of the English language to break that down. He basically fucks with the kid that whole time, even though the kid just wants to be friends.
Yeah.
The two scenes that really stand out, there's actually three, but one's kind of a spoiler, so I'll just talk about the two. The one scene involves where he traumatizes one kid. He's just slept with Catherine Hahn the night before. And she leaves her panties in the laundry closet that is his hotel room because nobody likes what he's doing. So he decides to not give the panties back to her, but instead puts them in his pocket. I guess he had this plan ahead of time, and that's why he did that.
Maybe.
He's sitting next to this kid when they're on stage. And just as the kid beside him is about to go, he pulls out the panties and tells the kid that they are his mom's and that he and his dad are going to be getting divorced because of this. Of course it causes the kid to fuck up.
Yep.
The second scene, which is even worse.
Yeah.
He's sitting next to a girl this time. And he says, I think you dropped a hairpin. And so the girl gets up out of her seat and starts to look for it. And while she's out of her seat, he pulls a ketchup packet out of his pocket and puts it on her seat. And when she sits back down, he says, I'm sure this is a really bad time, but you should be very happy because I think you're a woman now. And she's too traumatized to stand up and go to the microphone. So she gets disqualified. Now, the reason I tell you about these two scenes is, if this were any other movie, with any other performance, an audience would shun this guy and never look back.
Yep.
We would never, ever want to see anything good happen to this guy. We'd want to see this guy basically burned at the stake.
Correct.
But the way the character's written, and the way Bateman plays him, and just Bateman's overall charm and personality, he's able to win the audience over even after he does this shit.
Yeah.
There's also a segment involving when he and his little friend, get into a war. And things get unexpectedly out of control.
Yeah.
But, so yeah. I think it also helps that, I was really intrigued by the concept of this movie because, number one, I've always thought spelling bees were just an intriguing premise altogether.
Yeah.
Like, if you saw the movie Bee Season with Richard Gere, where he, has a daughter that's, he's basically one of those overbearing parents that absolutely must everything go right.
Mm-hmm.
And also the documentary Spellbound, which is really, really... Well, the thing was in elementary school, I was in the spelling bee almost every year.
Mm-hmm.
So that probably has a lot to do with why spelling bees have always been an intriguing subject to me when put in movies.
Yeah.
Because I know that, unfortunately, Bad Words doesn't really use the suspense that you can get out of the spelling bee concept. But still, the setup is just undeniably great. So yeah. I'd say it's probably my favorite movie of the year so far.
Yeah. After watching it, I can definitely see why.
So, which is weird because we haven't had, in my opinion anyway, we haven't had, a really, really great comedy for a really long time.
No.
I'm struggling to remember the last one. Most people tell you This Is the End, but I thought This Is the End was just okay.
The World's End?
Yeah, this is better than, I think. I mean, they're not too comparable because they're totally different things, but as far as comedies are concerned, I don't know, I do love The World's End, we'll say.
The World's End is awesome.
Speaking of The World's End, let's go a little British now.
Yes.
Our next movie is another movie that I loved. Sorry for the people that love the bad reviews.
Yeah, you're not going to be very happy this time around.
Our next movie is getting released here this week.
Yes.
Because I'm seeing banners for it everywhere on the internet. It's Dom Hemingway, which is basically Jude Law doing Bronson.
Yes.
Not doing Charles Bronson, but the movie about the prisoner Charles Bronson, played by Tom Hardy.
Bronson's a little bit more hardcore than Dom Hemingway.
Well,
in more ways than
I
one.
don't mean literally. I mean Jude Law's performance without necessarily the vicious beatings. The accent's intact, the nudity's intact, and the ferociousness is intact.
It is a standout performance in Jude Law's career for sure.
Okay. So basically, there's a few things going on here. But the main plot is Dom Hemingway has been in prison for 12 years. He's a safecracker. And while he was in prison, his daughter grew up and his wife died of cancer. But now he's being released, and the only thing that's really on his mind is reconnecting with his daughter, but most of all, getting the money he's owed from his boss, who's Damien Bashir.
Yes.
And he's willing to do anything for that. It's worth noting the writer and director is a guy named Richard Shepard, who did another movie that I fucking love called The Matador that had Pierce Brosnan and Greg Kinnear in it. Please check that movie out if you haven't. So basically, let me tell you about the first 5 minutes of Dom Hemingway.
This is awesome, by the way.
I'm talking about the opening scene, and then I'm talking about the opening credit scene that immediately follows it. We are introduced to Dom Hemingway immediately because we open and it appears that he's talking to the camera, but he's actually talking to somebody that's giving him a blowjob in prison. And he gives this gigantic monologue about his dick.
Yes.
He's basically revving himself up while receiving this. And he goes on this big tirade. The one portion of it I really remember is something along the line, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it's pretty much along the lines of, he's talking about how exquisite his cock is. And he says people should study it in art class because it's like a Picasso or a Renoir. They should also study it in science class because it defies nature. And then, once this scene's over, he's immediately released from prison, and the opening titles come up as he is charging his way towards something. When the credits end, we realize he's been charging towards the guy that basically kept his wife company while he was gone.
Yes.
And he beats this guy almost to death. And then leaves the scene.
After talking to the people at his job that he knows as well.
And then he meets up with his old friend, who is Richard E. Grant from With Nail and I, who's hilarious in this, by the way.
Yes. He's
He's
got a Bill Nye vibe in this movie.
Yeah.
Big time.
There's a couple of funny jokes about how he lost his hand. Which he may or may not lose again later. And they go visit his boss, Damien Bashir, to talk about getting the money back. And then unpredictability ensues for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
This movie goes in about 3 different directions in the span of 88 minutes, and it's really interesting and impressive to watch. I'll talk about Damien Bashir real quick, and the rest of the cast. I already talked about Law. Oh, I guess we'll go to Law first, and then we'll work our way down. What Jude Law does here that's great is, when he's in the full, ferocious, full-on Dom Hemingway, referring to himself in the third person, Dom Hemingway.
Slick back hair. And
I love the tagline of the movie is, I think it says Jude Law is, and then it says the title Dom Hemingway, and then in small print at the bottom of the poster it says, and you're not.
Nice.
And it's, yeah, the whole, I love referring to himself in the third person, because that's when he's really getting revved up.
It's like Diamond Dallas Page.
This basically could have been all the performance was with a less talented actor.
Yeah.
Who was basically just trying to... Or I suppose it could have been... It could work if it's all that, like what Hardy did in Bronson.
Yeah.
But that was because the character was totally psychotic.
Correct.
The Charles Bronson that Tom Hardy played is more or less, might as well be inhuman.
Yeah.
Because he was just that much of a monster. Is.
Yeah.
But Dom Hemingway is like a human being.
Yeah.
Like, he's like that, but he also has the side where, he has the daughter who's grown up into Amelia Clark that he really does want to connect to, and, he gets the catharsis and all that. And it could have just been kind of a one-note character, but he's able to balance that really well. And it also, another reason it works, because another way it could have failed was, they could make him not all yelling, and they could have turned him into the sentimental type, and it could have felt uneven, but it doesn't. Because he has such a strong hold on the character. He can go back and forth. Like when he meets his daughter's husband. And then he's able to go back into first mood later when he meets up with Lester Jr. Lester Jr., by the way, is another criminal he knew from his past, played by, oh shit, his name escaped me. He's the guy that played Hi-Hats in Attack the Block. This is only the second I've seen him in. I just fucking love that guy.
Nice.
I need to learn his name. I think it's Jermaine something. Jermaine Hunter, I think is his name. I hope so. So anyway, and Richard E. Grant, like I said, was hilarious in it. Damien Bashir's in it briefly, but he really makes an impact. Because people mainly know him, he was, they know him as the sensitive dad in A Better Life, and then he was the crazy-ass cartel guy in Savages, and then he was Castro in the Che movies. Here, he's actually, in this, like, very small amount of screen time that he has, he's able to make this character that's hilarious while being intimidating and threatening.
Yeah.
And you don't really know what he's gonna do. The very first time we see him, he's waiting for Dom at his house with a shotgun. Or a rifle. I wish there had been more of his character. But, you know, the way the movie plays out, I don't think I would take back.
No.
Because I love just how the whole... You think the movie's going to go in one direction and then it goes in another, and then when you think it's going to continue in this separate direction, it goes into another one. And it's just... Apparently this movie didn't get a very good reaction from a lot of people.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That kind of bums me out, because
Yes.
I don't really... I suppose I can kind of maybe see what they might have had a problem with, but I fucking love this movie.
It's really good.
I want to talk about Lester Jr. a little more. He's great because there's this great introduction where he's basically out running with his bodyguards. And Dom goes and chases him, and you think they're basically going to catch up, and, you know, Dom's going to, like, you know, get work from him so he can get money and all that. And Lester punches him in the balls for killing his cat. And this is basically their thing, is Lester's pissed off because Dom killed his cat before he went into prison 12 years ago. And Dom's basically trying to make it up to him. But Lester abandons him and continues running. And Dom says, I said I was sorry. Well, sorry won't bring Bernard back. And then in a fit of rage, Law's delivery of, you see, who names the cat Bernard? Of course I killed your fucking cat. And I really love, without saying too much, I will just say I love the ending too.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, lately audiences have gotten way too caught up in their cynicism and or wannabe cynicism. And people nowadays love characters who are unlikable and don't learn anything.
Mm.
Like, that's like a trend now. Like, people really love it when characters, like, do bad things. And then you think there might be a moment where they get some kind of catharsis, and then they just go back to doing bad things. It's the Alex Delars syndrome is what it is.
Yeah, very much so.
That's probably what got people hooked on it. But I love the ending to this movie because the thing is Dom seems like one of those characters that would happen to.
Mm.
But the thing is we get kind of the best of both worlds there.
Yeah.
Because he's Dom Hemingway, and then he's like the sensitive dad type. There's also a character named Melody that keeps coming in and out of the movie. Carrie Condon, I think is her name. Mm-hmm. And she's really good with the few scenes she has. Where she's basically like his... She's basically telling him, you know, good things will come to you, and he's basically saying, fuck that bullshit. So, we get to a point to where he's the vicious character that he is, and then he starts to kind of see a light. And then we learn that he's not totally changed, but he's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, the Dom Hemingway that went into prison is still there, and the new Dom Hemingway that's learning things is also still there, and they're kind of this composite person now.
Yeah.
So, I liked that as an ending, where we got, you know, both of that. So you could kind of please the cynics, and you can also please the, yeah, he should change a little bit perspective. Yeah. So, yeah. That's my third recommendation in a row.
Yeah.
And the last.
Yep.
Our last movie is a movie I wasn't even looking forward to.
I see the notes on this page. It frightens me.
Alright. I don't even remember much about it. I have to, like, actually look at my notes on camera because I don't even... It's such a bland-ass biopic-esque movie.
It's like your Winnie Mandela review.
I don't even... It's not that bad.
Oh. Give me a little hope then.
I almost don't even remember anything about it. We're talking about Cesar Chavez, which is Diego Luna's directorial debut. Who you know from Y Tu Mama Tambien, or you might know as the guy in the immortal words of Josh Brolin is now known as Latino Man.
Yes.
Not so much Josh Brolin as a drunken damn light, with Brolin ad-libbing. So, regardless, I just want to talk about milk now.
Please do.
Can we put this biopic to bed and talk about milk instead?
We'll come up with a verses for milk somewhere soon, so we can do that.
Or even Y Tu Mama Tambien.
Yeah, I have no
Alfonso
issue with
Cuarón
that.
just won 2 Oscars. Let's talk about Y Tu Mama Tambien for a little bit.
Yeah.
God damn it. Alright. So, Diego Luna did this test where he went out onto, like, the streets and asked random people if they knew who Cesar Chavez was, and pretty much nobody did.
Poor guy.
I think that was his point.
I think it probably was.
So, okay. Oh, so he's a great actor, by the way. I don't want anybody to think I'm bashing him or anything. And it's clear, you know, I feel bad for saying that because this is clearly a passion project.
Mm-hmm.
An actor doesn't turn director to make a biopic just to do it.
No.
This is clearly a story he was really into and really wants to get out there for people to see. But I think he needs a little more work. Okay. So while we're on the subject of Diego Luna, I was very disappointed that Gael Garcia Bernal does not make a cameo.
Yeah.
I was looking everywhere. Anyway, see how much I don't want to talk about Cesar Chavez? I keep just sidetracking into other shit.
Yeah.
I've talked about half of Diego Luna's filmography now. Let's talk about Criminal for a little bit, the movie he did with John C. Reilly and Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Alright.
Or Rudo y Cursi, remember that movie?
Yeah. Wasn't terrible.
I guess I have to talk about Cesar Chavez now.
Yes.
Okay. Basically, Cesar Chavez is played by Michael Pena. And I guess he thought this would be his Oscar role or something. Because, you know, he was just in a movie nominated for 10 Oscars and won none of them.
Shut up.
So...
Quiet you.
Okay. I'm going to really talk about Cesar Chavez now. I'm sure you're all looking forward to it.
So this is his Amelia, basically. In essence.
Okay, so here's what. At least it didn't have the embarrassment of being released in, like, October or November.
Yeah, good point.
Like an awards contender. Alright. Cesar Chavez was basically a farm worker. And... basically he turned into a civil rights group organizer. But that's the problem with this movie. Basically, there are these workers on a grape farm that work for wine companies. But the problem is they all start to protest. Okay? Cesar Chavez gets all these workers to start protesting these wine companies. And he gets his wife involved, and he gets his friends involved. And people get arrested, there's riots, people get hurt, people get beat up by the cops. But the movie never really tells us what in the fuck they're protesting.
Really?
Not that I recall.
Oh boy.
And I watched the whole thing from beginning to end. I'm pretty positive I didn't miss anything. They were just... I mean, I'm sure there was a great cause in real life. But the movie does not tell us what that is. In the movie, it just happens. I guess because protesters just exist to protest shit. That's why. Speaking of great actors put to no use, John Ortiz is one of the protesters.
What?
Yeah. What's up with that?
Yeah, really.
Speaking of David O. Russell movies. So, regardless, and we have a cast here of recognizable faces. His wife is America Ferrera, and his I wrote down what she is. Oh, she's just a fucking activist. He just knows an activist that's played by Rosario Dawson.
It's an awesome cast right there.
There is one person that got out of the movie unscathed, and we'll talk about him in a minute. If you're looking down the cast list, I'm sure you know who it is already. And that's just what this movie is. There's this whole ridiculous segment where he decides to stop eating. And he goes for 28 days, and it was perfectly timed, too. Because he's on, like, his 28th day of not eating. Which is ridiculous, because I still don't know what the fuck they're protesting. But one of the characters, just as I was thinking it in my head, it said, day 28 of the fasting. It counts it down.
Oh, God.
Finally, I was like, holy shit, day 28? And right after that, a character in the movie says, how long can people go without eating and not die?
Yeah.
I don't fucking know. I think he should have by now. But apparently this really happened, so I'll go with it. So, anyway, here's the biggest problem. The biggest problem here is Michael Pena.
Oh, that's bad.
Sorry. Normally Michael Pena is pretty reliable. You know, he's never had really big parts. I think the biggest part he's had to date was in End to Watch.
Yeah, he got an award nomination for that one.
Yeah, Spirit Awards.
Yep.
Where he lost to McConaughey.
That's right.
But the problem here is, okay, here was the biggest problem with the whole movie. This is like a huge red flag here, and I'm not quite sure where Diego Luna didn't see this. All right. Basically what this movie sets out to do is to tell us about Cesar Chavez, because not many people know about him and the great things that he did.
Okay.
So, okay, let's watch this movie to learn about him. Well, number one, the movie does not teach me what the fuck he was protesting. Number two... Number two, this is one of those movies that tries really, really hard. Normally, the really great biographies have really conflicted characters. Like Man on the Moon, or Ed Wood, or something like that.
That Versus is on the playlist right now.
Yes. Yes, we did do that, didn't we?
Yes.
This is one of those movies that tries way too hard to make Cesar Chavez out to be this incorruptible saint.
Yeah, that one of those movies.
Yeah. Just every single scene builds up to show us how just fucking amazing he is. I think there were actually a few scenes where a light from heaven was shining down on him. There's this hilarious scene where the fast is finally over, and he takes a bite out of a cracker and everybody applauds.
Oh my god.
I think I saw a light shine down on him from the clouds when he took the bite.
It was Peter from Need for Speed.
It's like the first... Yeah. It's like the first time they tasted the beer in Beer Fest.
Yes.
And the light on Paul Soder's face that comes down. That was one heavenly cracker he ate. So anyway, and there's another really ridiculous scene. There's a scene where America Ferrera protests and gets arrested for it. Because generally that happens.
Yeah.
Because they say, she says something that means something. It's a word in Spanish or something. And the cop literally says this, "Ma'am, you are forbidden to say that word." So she just keeps saying the word until she gets arrested. A lot of great that did. You know why? Because I don't even know what the fuck they're protesting anyway.
You said this numerous times.
So, she goes to jail. And then the next scene, she's already out of jail. And she's riding in the truck with Caesar. Okay? Now this is the big fucking saint we're talking about here, okay? Now listen to this. This is a line directly from the saint's mouth himself. Okay? This is the guy that we're supposed to think is God in human form. Helping protesters protest shit just to protest shit. They're driving down the street, they're talking about how she just spent the night in jail. She's talking about how she met people in jail, and how all the great things they were talking about, and all the great things they could do for the future of workers. And she says, and there was this one guy who was laying next to me in jail. Now, when she said that, we never get it confirmed, but I assume when she said that, there's like, if I remember correctly, not from personal experience or from other movies, basically jail is a cell with like a couple of benches. What I imagine is basically she was sitting on this bench and some dude was laying there.
Okay.
I think that's what she meant by there was a dude laying next to me in jail and we were talking about the protest. our god Caesar here, being serious, says, wait, so, there was a guy laying next to you in jail? And she just kind of ignores this comment. And then the scene ends with him acting like a jealous baby, and I swear to God, this is the real line. Well, I'm glad you had a good time in jail.
Wow.
Oh, man. The more I think about it, I was really, really fucking bored watching this movie, but the more I look back on it now, this movie's pretty hilarious.
It's not supposed to be.
Okay, let's talk about a couple of actors that went unscathed. I will talk about this guy named Jack Holmes. I think this is Jack Holmes' only movie. But he plays Robert Kennedy. And he's really fucking good at it. He looks like him, and he sounds like him, and he acts like him. To the point that I was thinking, did they do what Emilio Estevez did in Bobby, and they're just using archive footage of him? Because this is really, really clear archive footage. But no, it was a dude playing him that does an uncanny impersonation of him. That guy's going places. Do you remember the fucking name Jack Holmes?
He has been in one other movie. It was in 2013.
It's worth noting. Does anybody remember Julian Sands?
I saw that name in here and I was thinking that may be where you're going.
You remember Julian Sands from, like, Boxing Helena and Mike Figgis movies? He's in this. He plays... okay, here's the funny thing. He plays a representative of one of the wine companies that's being protested against. I think his fucking name in the credits is wine representative.
Well,
that's how. And here's the thing: Julian Sands was also in David Fincher's Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Yep.
He played the young. His character, Vanger, I think was the family name. He was playing the young Christopher Plummer. I don't think he got any lines, but he was there. He gets lines in this, but no name. So that blew my mind. It's like, did Mike Figgis do this movie? Oh wait, no, Diego Luna did. I forgot, because, yeah. Okay, so, and then we go into cliches. We really, really build on this cliche. This is one of those movies where, the dad gets caught up in a cause. And then he starts to get so caught up in the cause that he starts to neglect his son.
Aww.
And his son gets all rebellious and starts getting into trouble. And we actually have the line where, I'm being serious, I'm not paraphrasing, I'm not taking out the cliches and saying it's like this. This is the line.
Oh boy.
There's a scene where after all the neglect has gone on, and all of the you need to start paying attention to your son scenes that America Ferrera has to give us, that's the extent they use to her talent. I'm not even going to talk about how much they waste Rosario Dawson. I don't remember one Rosario Dawson line. She was just there to say, hey, I'm an activist, I'm here to help. But anyway, the line I'm talking about. They're sitting in the truck, and the kid is basically being all rebellious. And Caesar says something along the lines of, you know, don't do that. Or you shouldn't do that. He says something fatherly. And the kid says the line, oh, now you're interested in what's going on in my life. It's that kind of movie.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, so now you're interested in what's going on in my life. And, well, I'm glad you had fun in jail. Are two lines from the same movie.
Wow.
Yes. This is the kind of movie you're dealing with. So, speaking of cliches, this is one of those movies. I love this. This is one of those movies where they keep intercutting real footage of the protests.
Yeah.
Because that's going to make us feel something. Okay, fine. It works sometimes. Like I was talking about earlier, when Emilio Estevez uses the archive footage in Bobby, it's fucking seamless.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby is really fucking good, by the way, if you haven't seen it. And then there's the opening scene of Argo, where Affleck used the archive footage with the real footage of the riot. The archive footage is just fucking thrown in there. Just at random times. Just to kind of say, hey, this shit was real. Are you feeling something yet? I felt nothing through the whole goddamn thing, by the way, not even once. So, when I just, god damn this movie. What happened was, this is one of those movies where it gets to the point to where it was about to end. We were getting to the big ending. All the cheesiness had come to a point. We get to that point where, you know, the protest wins. And he actually stands up and yells, "We won!" And everybody applauds. There's a point where a paper is signed and everybody in the room applauds. And then he gives a sarcastic, a little condescending quip to the villains. You know, the big wine-producing villains. Oh, God help us, they make wine. And we're supposed to go, yeah, he fucking showed them. And everybody's fucking happy. We have Caesar the God on his pedestal. And then the scene cuts to black. And I was thinking, alright, here come the credits. Oh no, wait! We haven't had real footage of the real Caesar yet. Where is it? Fade right in to one 10-second black and white shot of the real Cesar Chavez just walking out of his house. And then we fade out and go into the credits.
Wow.
Oh my god. This movie really exists. Oh man. I'm sorry, Diego Luna. I know you're talented. I'm sure you can do this. But this wasn't that movie. Maybe next time. Alright. The one person that comes out of this movie unharmed, of course, is John Malkovich.
It has to be.
John Malkovich basically is like the head of like the wine company or something. He's basically the one they're protesting against. He's basically like a composite character of a shitload of wine people they're protesting against. By the way, we're at the end of this review, and I still don't know what they're protesting, but whatever. It's kind of funny to me because Malkovich in this movie kind of looks like his disguise at the end of In the Line of Fire, only through the whole movie.
Wow.
But, you know, Malkovich is untouchable. And he's actually, it's not just, you know, he's the best thing about a bad movie. He's actually pretty good in it. And anytime, I felt like the movie was in a good place when he was on screen, and then I felt severely in trouble when he was off screen. And it was just kind of this off-going relationship throughout the movie. I'd be like, oh, thank God Malkovich is here. Let me get what enjoyment I can out of this scene. And then he's gone, and I'm just kind of waiting for him to come back.
Yeah.
That's the kind of movie Cesar Chavez is. So...
That didn't sound fun at all.
That's pretty much that.
Well, if you are staying tuned to tomorrow's spoiler alert for Captain America the Winter Soldier, you can check that out. Brand new verse is coming on Sunday. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but if you have eyes, you may understand. Like I said, a very personal one. I will say also right now that next week should be interesting in the fact that we've got 3 very different movies. We have Oculus, we have Rio 2, and we have Draft Day.
And we also have Jim Jarmusch's movie, Only Lovers Left Alive.
Yes. So, any parting words?
No, that's it.